Howdy, partners. Today we ain't jawing about cattle drives or prairie trails. We're saddling up for a ride clean across the centuries to when two mighty outfits were squaring off for bragging rights over the Mediterranean. On one side, you had Rome, a rough and tumble republic sitting on the Italian boot. They weren't an empire yet, no sir, just a scrappy young pup that had already whipped every tribe and town from the Alps down to the toe. Their strength came from their legions, hard-marching, iron-willed citizen soldiers who'd fight till the sun quit shining. On the other side stood Carthage, sitting pretty on the coast of North Africa where Tunisia is today. Now, Carthage was a different breed, rich as a gold mine, fattened off trade. They had ships thicker than flies on molasses, sailing grain, silver, and fine purple cloth to every port worth mentioning. They weren't much for raising citizen armies like Rome. Instead, they hired mercenaries from Spain, Gaul, and Africa, paying them in cold, hard coin to do their fighting. And the place both these powers were eyeing? Sicily. And let me tell you, Sicily weren't just a big, fertile island. That rock was the breadbasket of the sea, pumping out grain enough to feed nations. More than that, it sat smack in the crossroads of every trade road from east to west, north to south. Whoever held Sicily didn't just get farmland, and they got the keys to the whole dadgum Mediterranean. Now the spark that lit the prairie fire came from a town called Messana, sitting on Sicily's northeast tip. Messana had been snatched up by a wild bunch of Italian mercenaries called the Mamertines. They'd once been hired to guard the place, but when the job ended, they liked the view too much to leave. So they stuck around, claimed it for themselves, and set up shop. Problem was, their neighbors weren't none too happy about a gang of squatters running the show. Soon enough, the Mamertines were hemmed in and outgunned, so they hollered for help. First they beckoned Carthage, then they waved down Rome, playing both ends against the middle. Rome saw a chance to plant its boots right in Carthage's backyard, and they didn't waste no time taking it. Carthage felt about as welcome as a skunk at a Sunday picnic. That was enough to set both sides at each other's throats, and the First Punic War was on. Now this war weren't no short scrap. It dragged on for 23 long years, longer than a Texas drought. At first, Rome looked like a greenhorn at sea, flailing around with no clue, while Carthage strutted with the finest sailors afloat. But Rome weren't the quitting type. They grabbed hold of a Carthaginian warship, studied it like a trail map, and cranked out copies by the dozen. Then they slapped on their own trick. The Corvus, a mean-looking boardin bridge with a great iron spike. Soon as their ships butted up against Carthage's, that contraption dropped, and Roman legionaries poured across like a stampede, turning sea fights into the kind of dirt-kicking brawl they knew best. With that gizmo, they scored a big win at the Battle of Mylae. But Carthage weren't just sitting on their hands. They had commanders like Hamilcar Barca, tough as rawhide, father to that famous Hannibal we'll be hearing about later. He kept Rome on its toes with raids and ambushes, fighting all across Sicily. Rome laid siege to cities like Agrigentum, pounding at the gates, while Carthage struck back from the shadows. Fleets sank in storms, thousands of men fed the fishes, and both sides burned through coin like poker players on payday. It was a seesaw fight. Rome up one day, Carthage the next, neither side willing to let go. Finally, in 241 BC, Rome broke as a busted prospector, scraped together one last fleet with money begged and borrowed from its citizens. They sailed out and cornered Carthage at the Aegates Islands, giving them a whooping they couldn't shake off. With their navys smashed, their mercenaries grumbling, and their coffers emptier than a dry well, Carthage threw in the towel. Rome strutted out the winter. They grabbed Sicily, making it their first province beyond Italy, and they made Carthage cough up a mountain of silver. But pride, that's one debt you can't pay off. The sting of this defeat settled deep in Carthage's bones, and it was only a matter of time before they came riding back for another round. That rematch? Well, it'd be the Second Punic War, when Hannibal would drive elephants across the Alps like a storm out of legend. So there you have it, the First Punic War, a long, ornery tussle of grit, stubbornness, and invention, with two powers butting heads till one finally buckled. History ain't much different than a cattle range. Folks'll fight tooth and nail to see whose brand gets seared onto the choicest patch of pasture. Now, if you enjoyed riding the history trail with me, tip your hat to that subscribe button and hitch your wagon to this channel, 'cause we got plenty more stories down the road.